Hello everyone, my name is Lynn and I will go over the origin of Hangul for the presentation today. Okay, so Hangul is a native script of Korea. It was created in the mid 15th century by King Sejong. Initially, it denounced by the educated class as Onmun. It only became the primary Korean script following independence from Japan in the mid 20th century. Spacing has been introduced to separate words with punctuation to indicate clauses and sentences so that the Korean alphabet now transcribe Korean at the levels of feature, segment, syllable, morpheme, word, clause, and sentence. Okay, and then coming into a little bit of the historical timeline. So Sejong the Great, the fourth king of Joseon Dynasty, created Hangul in 1443. He also wrote the preface to the Hunmin Jeongeum, which translated into the proper sounds for the education of the people, explaining the origin and purpose of Hangul and providing brief examples and explanation, and then tasked the Hall of Worthies to write details, examples, and explanation. And then Hunmin Jeongeum was officially published and promulgated to the public in 1446. So Hunmin Jeongeum is basically intended to be a simpler alternative to the incumbent Chinese-based Hanja in order to promote literacy among the general populace. It originally included 28 letters, but over time, 4 of those were abandoned, leading to the current 24 letters of Hangul. And then for Hunmin Jeongeum was King Sejong the Great also commissioned the creation of a companion explanatory manuscript entitled Hunmin Jeongeum Haerae. In 1940, a copy of the Hunmin Jeongeum Haerae was discovered in Andong, Gyeongsang Province. An original copy of the document is currently located at the Kansong Art Museum in Seoul, South Korea. In 1962, Hunmin Jeongeum Haerae was designated as a national treasure in South Korea and was registered by UNESCO in the Memory of the World Programme in 1997. So there are 3 versions of Hunmin Jeongeum. The first one is the very original one, is the Hunmin Jeongeum Yeoi, which is the Hanja version. It's also called Hunmin Jeongeum Shillok, which translated into like the Sejong Chronicles. And then the second version is the Hunmin Jeongeum Haerae, which is the most popular one, which is the illustration explanation of Hunmin Jeongeum. And then the last one is the Hunmin Jeongeum Onhae, which is the Hangul version of Hunmin Jeongeum Yeoi. And then the purpose, coming on to the purpose of Hangul, Sejong explained that he created the new script because the existing edu system based on Chinese characters was not a good fit for Korean language and only used by Yangban who could afford the education. The vast majority of Koreans were illiterate, and the Korean alphabet is designed to target even the commoner with little education could learn to read and write. And Sejong also stated that a wise man can acquaint himself with them before the morning is over. A stupid man can learn them in the space of 10 days. And then here is the Korean transcription of the Chinese initials. So except for the obsolete palatal stops, all 36 initials in the Chinese inventory had Korean equivalents. So while developing this new writing system, Hangul, King Sejong also faced with a lot of oppositions. During the second half of the 15th century, the new Korean script was used primarily by women and undereducated. It faced heavy opposition from Confucian scholars educated in Chinese, notably Chue Mandi, who believed Hanja to be the only legitimate writing system, and also later kings also opposed it. In 1504, some commoners wrote posters in Hangul mocking King Yongsangun, so he forbade use of Hangul and initiated a series of palace purges. 2 years later, King Jongjong abolished the Hangul ministry. So Korean alphabet was lost and would not and didn't return until the World War II. And here are the Korean consonants. So the design of Hangul consonants, you can see the coronal consonants, or also known as tongue sounds, represent the tongue bent up to touch the palate. And then the bilabial consonants, which is the lip sounds, represent the lips touching or parting. And then the sibilants or incisor sounds represent the teeth with airflow directed against them. And guttural consonants, which is the throat sounds, represent an open mouth and throat, including the null initial for vowel starting syllable. And then the labiodental consonants, or light lip sounds, derived from the bilabial series. And consonant stroke patterns, plain stop, feature a vertical stop top stroke, and non-stop, like the vertical stroke, and aspirated stops add an extra stroke. Okay, so the diacritics for suprasegmentals. In Korean has a simple tone system often characterized by the poorly defined term pitch accent. Hangul originally had two diacritics to represent this system: a single tick, as in song, for high tone, and a double tick, as in song, for a long vowel. When describing Chinese, these had been used for the departing and the rising tones, respectively. The even tone was not marked. The entering tone, which was not a tone at all, was indicated by its final stop consonant. Although the pitch and length distinctions are still made in speech by many Koreans, the diacritics are obsolete.
I'll be going over some of the differences between Hangul versus Google, which is the Google Vietnamese. So the origin of Google was developed by the Jesuit missionaries in the 17th century, notably by Alexander the Rhodes, and it got adapted by the Roman alphabet to represent Vietnamese sounds using diacritics. And then the structure, so for Hangul, futural alphabet, where letters are based on phonetics and the shape of the articulatory organs. Characters are grouped into syllabic blocks. And then for Guoklo, the alphabetic system based on Latin script with additional diacritics for tone and vowel distinctions. Guoklo includes tone and pronunciation markers, written linearly like most alphabetic systems. And then for representation of tones, Hangul historically include diacritics for pitch and vowel balloons, but no longer does. And modern Korean does not use Hangul to represent tones. On the other hand, Wokung represents six tones explicitly through diacritics. Essential for distinguishing meaning in the tonal Vietnamese language. Coming on to adoption and use, so Hangul initially resisted by scholars favoring Chinese Hanja, gradually accepted and became the primary Korean writing system in the 20th century. Um, um, and for Gutlo, gained prominence during French colonial rule, replacing Junong, which also based on the Chinese character. Now is the standard and the only writing system used for Vietnamese. And coming on to the similarities, so Hangul and Gukul both derive from Chinese kind of Hanja, so it has quite a bit of similarities when it comes to pronunciation. And for Hangul, it's gonna be like Chubai, and for Gukul, it's like Sotba, and then Junbi is gonna be Chonbei. Thank you for listening.